Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. Always a pleasure to welcome Doug Lane from the North Canton Chamber of Commerce. Good morning.
Good morning, and happy to be here today.
And so much always going on there. First of all, happy anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been 10 years as the president.
Isn't that
That's
cool?
even longer than 2 terms for the real president. And I didn't even have to get a vote. So.
No, but you've gotten to see a lot of changes in that time. So tell us a little bit, remind us what all has happened in that time.
Well, it's kind of combination because we're celebrating our 60th anniversary this year. So we're still very much involved in the community, but how we're involved has changed, if that makes some sense to you.
It does. How so?
So, well, we're still doing things like the Main Street Festival. That's 23 years now this year.
Wow.
But we're also involved now working with the city on economic development that we hadn't been before up until about a year or so ago. So we're in our second year of that.
Let me stop you there. Let me take that back because I thought that's what Chambers of Commerce did was work on the economic development.
We do that.
Okay,
and we
yes.
have done that for 60 years. But now we're being paid by the city to do a little bit more.
Very cool.
So we're a liaison. So many times the city will get a call from somebody saying, hey, I'm interested in a particular piece of property or I want to put a business in. And they'll handle that from a certain standpoint, but they're also running lean and mean like we are. And so sometimes things fall between the cracks or somebody wants more than what they can deliver as far as maybe some research and some other things. And at the same time, we get a lot of calls that avoid the city because they figure Chambers of Commerce do economic development. So it makes a lot of sense to have us work hand in hand.
Absolutely.
So Pat Iorio and I, the deputy or the administrator and his deputy, Kathy Farina, and I, we all work together on a variety of different projects. And so when they get a lead, they help to make sure I know about it. That doesn't necessarily mean I have to follow up on it, but I know about it. Vice versa. When I get a lead, then I let them know that I'm working on it. And we had an instance about a week or so ago. Somebody's interested in putting a store on Main Street, and they needed to have a little bit of they're planning on remodeling, and so they want to make sure that what they're doing is up to code before they decide to buy the building and find out after the fact that it's going to cost them a lot more money than what they thought going in. So we arranged to have the meeting. We went to the meeting. We went with Safe Built, who was the people that do the building and permits for the city, got them all together, and now it looks like that one's going to be going forward. So we have a lot of those kind of things that we do, but that's different from what we were doing up the first 58 and a half years.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
What surprises have happened as you've gotten into this?
Oh, gosh. I think just lifestyle changes, things that are going on. The traditional chambers of commerce are a bunch of basically white-haired guys that hang around and, lunch or whatever. I think that's what people think when they think of chambers of commerce. And that's not what we do anymore. I mean, most of my board is under the age of 40. We do an awful lot of lifestyle-oriented things. That might be where the CEO comes or the HR person. But the regular staff, they want to go out and do some fun things, so now we have that opportunity for them. So I think, as the world changes, the chamber has to change.
Yes, good point. Well, and interesting that you're attracting younger people onto a chamber. What it seems to be their reasoning for wanting to get involved this young?
Well, most young people want to get involved in their community. And I think a lot of times they don't know how to get involved because, again, there's so many institutions, particularly in our city. I mean, you have the library, you have the Y. You've got the Chamber of Commerce, you have the city, you have the schools, you have Walsh. And sometimes people don't know how to connect with them to find something that they want to do. And the JCs are separate from us, but they meet in our building, and we've had a long history with the JCs.
Yes.
And so as some of the people get involved with the JCs, then they find out through our building and through that connection of some of the things that we're doing. So I think that's helping an awful lot. And as long as we have, I don't want to say, because it's not always fun, but a lot of important things that need to be done that somebody can get a certain sense of accomplishment out of it. That's what they want to do. And so going to a lunch or going to a breakfast and networking isn't necessarily what they want to do. A lot of our people do, but the other people want to do something different. So
you're
we have to offer that.
Tapping into what they'd like to do and things to gather them together. What do the funds go towards then when you do these kinds of events?
Well, community event. If we partner with somebody, it goes to the partners that are involved. Otherwise, it goes to our bottom line so we can stay in business. And so, again, we only have a staff of 2. We're going to add a half-time person at some point.
That is amazing.
Oh, I know, as much as we get done.
Yes.
But we run very, very tight. And so, obviously, we get a certain percentage from our members. We're the second largest chamber in the county, so we have about 480 members. But at $175, $235 a piece, you can do the math and figure out how much is coming in. So the events make up the sponsorships. And then those two things, as well as what we do with the city and some of the other grants that we can get, that makes our budget, which allows us to stay in business. But as a nonprofit, we can't make a profit, and trust me, we don't.
You've done so much as far as keeping North Canton City alive. When we think back of the history and the loss of the commerce like the Hoover Company and some that was a big hit.
Oh, it was a major hit. I was on city council at that time when they closed, and I took over the chamber a year and a half later, and we were in the midst of a pretty big recession nationwide as well as locally. I mean, the city lost a huge amount in tax revenue from that. And you also had a certain amount of pride. I mean, you've got these vacuum cleaners and things coming out of the city of North Canton. You had a huge workforce in there. And when they left, I mean, there was nothing left. And so now that building is in the process, much slower than what I'd like it to be, of being revitalized. There's about 800 jobs there on a daily basis, but we still have the entire front of that building that I want to see finished. The apartment's finished. That's out of my hands because I don't own it, but we constantly stay on it. So I think once you see that piece of that puzzle come together between that downtown core and Washington Square, you know, I think you're going to see even more revitalization of what's going on, plus the parks. We worked with the city. We got a $750,000 grant from the state of Ohio for our parks. So we're going to do a stage area at Bitzer Park, which is downtown. Patrick DiOrio is working with Akron Children's, who's putting in a huge facility in the city. They are also doing a performance area, a building at what is now Dogwood Park. So Dogwood is being totally revamped. And it's going to be really cool. It's a all-inclusive park that's going to be that's gotten some state funding in addition to what we helped get. That's going to allow for all kinds of kids to take advantage of that. And then third, coming up in about a year or so from now, there will be a new park on the east side of town with an amphitheater and some other. So it's about a $6.5 million upgrade to the parks. And so when you look at already having a good quality of life, and you add these things, and you add the events like what we're doing with, the old ones like the Main Street Fest, but also what we're doing with the Holiday Sing, and we're bringing back that concert with the Canton Symphony this time. That'll be on Labor Day.
Oh, wow. That's
something we had for years and went away because of the recession. So we're raising some money for that right now. Feel free to give me a call. I'd be happy to take it, and we'll give you prime seats for that. So, but that'll be happening on Labor Day. That's something that hasn't happened for about 10 years now.
Nice.
And so we're doing a lot of these events. The library has their outdoor movies. They draw 300 or 400 people for those all the time. You've got the Y Run. You're talking 3,000 people involved in that. So there's an awful lot going on that I think that story needs to be told, but also I think it also makes a big difference in the outer community and the people that are listening to your show to know that these things are happening in the community in North Canton.
I love that you said a couple minutes ago something about North Canton pride. There just really is something that keeps that spirit alive. What is it that is so special about North Canton?
I'm not 100% sure. I've been there 31 years, and I've had it all the time I've been there. And I think what it is, it's tradition for one thing. I mean, you go back through the schools and Hoover and all of their awards over the years, both academically and athletically and in the arts. And then you've got second and third generation. So they don't necessarily live in the city anymore, but they're just outside of the city. So they come to the Little League, they come to the Y. Some of them work there at the Hoover District. Some make it, they walk their dog at night through the city, and they still have that feel. And so I think when you look at that and the pride that people do take, whether it's older housing or you got new houses out in Monticello and some of the other areas, we run the gamut. I mean, you can get a house for about $100,000, and you can also get one for $500,000, all within the same city. So as people, they might have grown up in a little bungalow when their parents worked for Hoover, and then they decided, okay, we need a little more room for our kids. And next thing you know, they're back in the city in Monticello because they wanted an acre lot or whatever. So I think that's where the pride comes from, is just this longevity.
It's generational.
Yeah, and the new people come, and I think they feel that as well. And I know the city tries to make them feel welcome, and also with all of these various community events, I think as they come out and see them, it makes a big difference.
Do you see kids leaving the area or coming back?
Well,
it sounds like
both.
Okay.
I think sometimes we had the Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, was in the office last week, and he met with about 20 of our members, and at the end we were talking about that very same thing. And he lives in Hudson, and he's got a young daughter, and he was talking with her and some others, younger people, that because he's involved with the Boy Scouts too, and a lot of them were talking about leaving. And so he instills in them, and I think he's absolutely right, go see the world if you want to, but also be thinking about what's back here. You know, you're less than an hour away from world-class entertainment. You have an unbelievable house that you can buy for a very small amount of money.
Cost of living is
awesome. And again, if your whole world is Playhouse Square or it's something in Columbus, you're pretty close. So, you know, as you see the world, maybe spend 4 or 5 years out of here, come back and raise your family. And I think that's the big key. And that was the point that he was trying to make when he was talking with his young daughter, that, yeah, you know, I don't want you to sit here and think that there isn't a world, but see it and then come back, because I think you're going to realize what you got here.
Well,
and that's just not North Canton. That's all of Stark County.
That does fit Stark County. And I think you do see once young people are starting to raise a family, they do come back. I thought it was for the free babysitting, but, you know, that might be part of it. But they do start to say, this would be a great place to raise a family.
Well, and we're starting to see some younger companies. I think the last time I was here, I talked about Squirrels, and they bought the Germantown station area in behind Mark's. And they're remodeling all of that. And they've expanded out now. There are actually 2 different companies. They're involved in blockchain. They're involved in software. These are all young people. They're millennials. And they not a lot of them live in our city yet because they haven't found the housing they want, but they work in our city because they like it. And I think as we start bringing in some of that housing, you're going to start seeing those 2 things meld together. Same thing with Walsh as it continues to grow. And those students, they graduate, particularly, I think there's 30, or Rich told me the other day, I think there's 39 countries that are there. It's like a miniature United Nations.
It's amazing, yes. You look at all the flags.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It's crazy.
It's
and so
awesome.
Those people, you know, when they get done, they aren't necessarily wanting to go back to Bangladesh, let's say,
true.
I'll just, or Paris. They might really like Northeast Ohio.
Just
and so
putting
we
in some
have to
roots.
give them a reason to be here and to stay here. So I think our future also lies at the end of this, right before you get into Plain Township as well.
North Canton has done a great job of maintaining that small town feel where everybody knows each other. You've got such awesome events. You mentioned Main Street Festival. I also think how many communities still do a 4th of July parade, you know? I mean, that's just
right.
so cool. Let's talk about all the things going up, because I'm sure they're extra special this year being a 60th anniversary.
Yeah, not only our events, but also 720 Market will be back right downtown. That'll be on July 20th.
Nice.
Memorial Day Parade is coming up here in the month of May. I'm looking ahead here at the Library Movies. They have also their Live at the Library series with bands right outside the library. We're taking advantage of that City Hall portico that's been redone. You got the J.C. Fair coming up in the middle of June. You mentioned the Y Run on July the 4th. Looking down the line at the Main Street Fest, the symphony performance, the Main Street Chocolate Walk. We're going to do that again in September.
Whoa. Okay, wait a
that was
minute.
a lot of
Tell
fun.
me about that. Yeah, let's
Figured that
have more
might get you.
details about that.
Yeah, I think it was, don't hold me to this, but I think it was 20 or 25 bucks. And you got to go to 40 different stops along Main Street and get different chocolate.
Okay.
Which was fun.
What else do you need?
We sold out last
I'm
year.
sure.
It was awesome. And I think we had 100 tickets. We had 100 people, and then their
That's awesome.
families came with them. And so that'll be coming up again in September, and then we have the annual holiday thing that comes up. And this doesn't even include, you know, other things that the Y does and different groups do at the various locales around town. So there's always something going on. It's just a matter of making sure people know what's going on.
Yes.
It's always a challenge in this day and age.
Is there a website or someplace where
Oh,
everything's
gosh.
listed?
NorthCantonOhio.gov is the city site. NorthCantonChamber.org is our site. The schools have their site. We try and do our best to collate all of this stuff. There's never a guarantee. So,
Okay, so check everything.
yeah, just check everything. And,
Yeah.
and a lot of these things are annual, and they all come up at the same time. So, you know, if you're thinking, hey, it must be about Memorial Day, are they going to do the parade again? Well, obviously they're going to do the parade again.
Right.
It's going to end down by the Veterans Memorial. But they're also enhancing that and doing something else behind City Hall for that one. And so those are the kind of things you kind of have in the back of your mind. All you have to do is just kind of double check on that.
All right.
You know, watch the rep, watch Our Town. They do a great job of covering a lot of local events too.
Great. All right, we're going to be back with Doug Lane from the North Canton Chamber after these words. You're listening to Our Community.